At Alpha Morgan Capital, we know that wealth creation is not just for you alone, but for the next generation as well.
Ooh, that's my boy! Congratulations, dear!
We at Alpha Morgan understand that every effort you make daily is a journey to create sustainable wealth. That's why Alpha Morgan stays committed to helping you sustain generational growth in wealth so you can focus on other things. Alpha Morgan, funds management, investment banking, financial advisory. Alpha Morgan, your investment banking institution. Go to www.alphamorgan.com. Call 081-5171-7171. Alpha Morgan, growing your wealth.
Good morning, Mr. Buraimo and distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here today to share our perspectives as to what has happened in 2021 and the likely and probable outcomes for 2022. Without much ado, we're going to have a review of 2021, a snapshot of 2021, the global context and imperatives, because it's quite clear that just as COVID, Delta, Omicron has shown that even if you close your borders, the world is global. Even diseases are global. Economic flows are global. Investment flows are global. Even if you restrict people, flows will take place. So it's important to look at the global context and imperatives. It's not to talk about money which is fungible. Ade Buraimo just mentioned the fact that we want you to look at investment outlets in all currencies. That was a very loaded statement. Then we'll look at the Nigerian economy in 2022. What's the likelihood of what will happen, with special emphasis on the first quarter. Then the policy options before government and people, the risks, and summarize and conclude very quickly. In all, we have about 30 minutes. So what happened in 2021? Very simply, I will start with some notes I have. It says that Nigerian markets were wobbled basically through the year on investor confidence concerns. The stock market slid, but then stabilized at the end in the last fortnight. Omicron virus and near testing and testing questioned the leads to Nigerian isolation. So, they led to our isolation, but then we're brought back because there was no way you can stop us. 1 in 4 Africans is a Nigerian. Official inflation data sent mixed signals to markets. And again, oil prices were all over the map. And you can see from this slide here that oil prices averaged $70 in 2021, as against 63% higher than what it was in 2020. The average price in 2020 was $43 a barrel. In 2021, it's 70.7. So the question is that if the price of our major commodity increased by 63%, did our economy or our economic conditions improve by 63%? That's what you need to think about. Let's talk about oil production. But even if the price increases and you don't produce, you have nothing to sell. Our production was below our benchmark, but it was 1.4 million barrels a day. So technically speaking, and theoretically speaking, the economy should have been in a better place. The question is, why was it not in a better place? Or why is it not in a better place? So you will hear the official lines to say, okay, things are improving. Yes, but could they have been better or could they have been worse? The answer is there. As I said, the answer is blowing in the wind. Now, official headline inflation continues to moderate it. According to NBS, inflation had come down for 8 consecutive months. And when you compare the price of last year and the price of this year, what you hear and what you feel and what you see are 3 different things. So there's a divergence from market reality. Sooner or later. Yes? I thought we've done that already. Hold on. We need to share the slides so you can see the slides. Share screen. That's it. Slide. Okay, can you see the slides now? I thought you were seeing the slides.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So if I flip, this is where we started. This is what I was discussing. The official headline inflation continues to moderate. But again, like I said, what you see, what you feel, and what you hear could be three different things. Technically speaking, it should be the same. But you know, one other thing for investors on this call, very, very important, that at the beginning of the year, the 364-day treasury bill went as high as 9.5 or 9.6%. Today is about almost 5%. Okay. Why? If inflation, official inflation rose to about almost 18% and is down to 15%, down about 3%, 2.5% to 15%, then the monetary policy team felt that it was wise to bring down the rate of interest. But the consequence of that is that you reduce the national savings ratio, you reduce the investable funds, and one of the biggest mistakes that people in policy make in this country, including economists or professional economists and quack economists, the thing is that they mistake liquidity for income. So when there's excess liquidity, it means they think people have income. You can borrow liquidity, but you cannot borrow income. So you can have a man, the way to look at it is you can see a man at an Owambe party spraying all over the place. The money is spraying. If it's borrowed money, that is liquidity. If it is money as earned, it's income. And it's very unlikely that somebody with income who worked for it is going to be spraying the money. Well, it is possible that the man who borrowed the money, who thinks that he can bribe a bank manager to defer his payments, will begin to spray. I think that's my most important example. The another thing that happened in 2020-21 was that the federal government of Nigeria borrowed a lot of money from the central bank. But the good thing was that central bank started charging 2% above MPR for that money. So essentially, the federal government is paying 13.5%, whilst the 10-year bond is going for, I think, 11%, right? And the 20-year bond is about 12%, 12 point something percent. So it is cheaper for the federal government to securitize its debt than to borrow from the central bank. Why do I say this? Because you investors on this call have the option of investing in treasury bills, investing in commodities, investing in metals, or also investing in the stock market. So, what happened? What were investor expectations were as follows. GDP growth, 1.7% were expectations, but in the end, we probably end up at about, this is actually, the slide I'm talking to now is expectation versus outcome. Okay, so 1.7 was what we expected at the beginning of the year, but now maybe we close the year at about 2.5. Okay. Average oil production expectations were about 1.6, but we did an average of 1.4. Of course, OPEC, non-OPEC, OPEC plus, and other things. Price was about $50, but we got about 70, so we're 41.4% above. And like I said, the oil price in reality was 63% above. Official headline inflation, we thought it would come down to 16, but actually it came down sharply to 50. Official headline inflation 15.4, something like that. Okay, so two things happening according to official data. One, prices resistance by consumers, and two, seasonality, and three, data that raises questions. Money supply, again, liquidity. 37 trillion was the expectation. It ended up about almost 42, if not 43 trillion, I think, about that. Of this 43 trillion, I think about 13 trillion is held as CRR. So the money that is floating around the country is probably about 30 trillion naira. Now, of this 30 trillion naira, 2.4 trillion, according to the central bank, is cash in circulation, According to unofficial sources, I understand it's about 3 trillion. Okay, the difference between official sources and unofficial sources of cash is that some of the cash, cash that is supposed to have been destroyed has not been incinerated and all that. But also, we do not want to believe that there's also a lot of counterfeit currency in the system. I doubt it, but we'll see. But we're going more towards the cashless economy. The exchange rate expectation that at worst, currency will close at about 485, because at this time last year, I think the parallel market was about 420 or something like that. Yeah. So now what has happened? We've gone 130, 100, maybe 100, almost 150 naira more in terms of depreciation. So when you expected, if your brother came home last December, in spite of COVID, and he gave you dollars, you got 420, 430 naira. If you kept the dollar in your suitcase and brought it out this year, you will be getting 575 naira. So maybe you shouldn't have you shouldn't have spent it or changed the dollar. You should have waited. So that's the story. So when your cousin comes this time, when you bring it, keep it, and the more you keep it, the more the naira will depreciate, because there will be a shortage of supply. So that's what we call the paradox of thrift. So stock market, you can see it all over the map. 2020 is the red line. 2021 is the blue line. So 2021 was a worse year. This is a year. 2020 was when we had negative growth, NSAS. 2021 was when we had positive growth. We had more dollars. We had higher oil price. And look at what the market is. The market is telling you that, 1, we do not believe your data. 2, your policy pronouncements are inconsistent. So the market is punishing us. So let us go. And Ade Buraimo invested. He had $100,000 at the beginning of the year, and he decided to invest. But he was so smart, he invested in the US equity market. And what did he get? He got 23% return. However, inflation in the US went from 1.5 all the way to 6.3. So Ade Buraimo was happy that he got 23%, but in effect, his real return was 23 minus 7, which was 15% per annum. Not bad at all. Ade Buraimo said, well, I am a patriotic Nigerian, therefore I'm not going to put all my money abroad. He invested in Nigeria equity market. He believed, because in 2020 he got 50% return, put the money here, and then this year he got 5%, and said, oh my God. But the rate of inflation in Nigeria has come down, not so bad, 15. So he lost 10% by going to bed, which he was losing 1% every month. Ade Buraimo also decided that he wanted to be a patriotic Nigerian. He believes the government, therefore he invested money in Nigerian treasury bills. At the beginning of the year, he was getting 9%. At the end of the year, was getting 5%. When he discounted for inflation, he got only 10.4. He had negative 10.4. So he's bleeding. Then Ade now built a new house in Ikoyi, not on Gerard Road, but on Bodilon, and got a 15% return. Compared to inflation, it's just minus 0.4. So it's not doing badly then. Then his son comes back and says, Daddy, I'm not interested in all of this. I want to invest in Bitcoin. He invested his dollar in Bitcoin. I will not keep my dollars under my mattress. And he got 61% return in Bitcoin, 45% above the rate of inflation in the US. This is what happened to investors in Lagos and everywhere in 2021. We still have a few days to go, but that it's unlikely that anything will happen except Omicron. So people investing in crypto. This is what we saw from Statista Global Consumer Survey. The biggest share of respondents in selected countries who said they used or owned cryptocurrencies: 32% in Nigeria, Vietnam 21%, Philippines 20%, Turkey 16%, Peru 16%, Switzerland 11%. So there's market sophistication. Even the US has only 6%. But some people link this to 2 things: 1, high rate of inflation; 2, uncertainty about policy; and 3, clamping down on people. The more you clamp down, the more people, people like to do the things which naturally are illegal. So this is what you got. Now, so these are just the global returns, and you can see mainly GSC, which is Ghana Stock Exchange. You got a 32% real rate of return, as against Nigeria, where you got a minus 15 or so, you have minus 10. In S&P, you got plus 16. Johannesburg Stock Exchange, you got plus 12. So this other one, SSE, went up 3.47, but real rate of return was 1.17, and Nigerian Offshore Index, we had minus 10 return. Okay, so let us look at what happened. The top 5 companies in South Africa, top 5 capitalized companies, their total revenue was 377 billion. You know what that means? 377 billion is the equivalent of South Africa's GDP. That's their revenue. 5 companies. They made a profit of $14 billion. $14 billion. The profit of these 5 companies is almost equal to 50% of the Nigerian federal government budget. Let us look at Nigeria, the top companies in Nigeria. Dangote, MTN, Airtel, Boa, and Nestle. They made total revenue here of 6.8 billion and profit of $1.38 billion. In other words, $6.84 billion of Nigeria's top 5 companies is 1.8% of. So Nigeria's top 5 companies made only 1.8% of the profit revenue, right, of the top 5 companies in South Africa. So 1, consistent policies. 2, sophisticated markets. 3, strong regulation leads to mature markets. So South African markets are more mature than Nigerian market. But are we getting there? Yes, we are getting there. 10 years ago, Dangote Cement, nobody in this room on this call had Dangote Cement in his portfolio. I think 10 years ago or 20 years ago, Dangote was not, 10 years ago, Dangote was not even quoted. Everything was in the pocket of the man. Now it's quoted. MTN was held by very few people in Nigeria. They only went public here about a year ago. Right? Airtel was listed only about 2 years ago. Boa, I think, was quoted and listed not too long ago, but Nestle has been there forever. Okay, so the pension funds are the biggest proxy and measure of what happens in a market. So total pension funds Q1, right, was 36 trillion. Q2, 37 trillion. Pension funds, then 38 trillion and 40 trillion naira. Okay. So this is what it is, but again, the rate of unemployed and unemployed people is also affecting this. But this is top picks, the top companies that we deal with. Now, look at Dangote. Its market cap is 4.3 trillion naira. Its year-to-date return is 4.74, whilst its sector growth 5.68. What does it tell you? It tells you that the Nigerian economy grew at best by 2% in 2021, but Dangote's cement growth, right, Dangote's cement growth was much more than that. So what you are seeing here is that year-to-date return is 4%, while the sector growth was 5.68. But what we should be comparing is the growth in its revenue versus the growth in the sector. So we know that the revenue of Dangote outperformed the sector growth, which means that is doing it at the expense of others. But what we're showing here is slightly different. Now, MTN, its year-to-date return, if you invested in it, you got about 9% return in a sector that is growing at 10%. Airtel Africa, so I will leave this slide. You see year-to-date return, for example, Zenith Bank, GT Bank, Stanbic, FBN, all 25, because we started from a low base, right? So Now, top 10 capitalized stocks outperform sector growth and GDP growth. So, year-to-date return not reflective of company growth. So, what do we have? Growth in banks, the bank's exposure to sectors, right? If Nigerian banks had only 1.69% of the exposure to cement, they had 2.5% of the exposure to telecoms, food and beverage 15%, and they had, of course, banking is banking, so they were not exposed to one another. That's quite interesting to see that. Now, throughout the year, we've already talked about the performance throughout the year. So what's happening globally, and we'll just spend a few minutes on this. There are some trends that we need to watch out for. Inflation concerns going all over the world. As a matter of fact, the Bank of England has increased interest rate for the first time in almost 12 years. The Federal Reserve is going to increase interest rates in March. 2, global inflation more structural than transient. We were arguing before that, oh, this is transitory, but it is not. It's more structural. So you have part structural, part. And Joe Manchin refused to vote for the stimulus plan because he thinks that inflation. So you can imagine America, the House of Reps has passed it, Congress has passed it, the president has pushed it. However, we are getting a different feedback. Now, monetary policy tightening has started, and it's going to start, right? Number 4, debates of how to work from home. As a matter of fact, the whole of Europe, people have shut down and are working. Most of them are working from home. As a matter of fact, Holland, Switzerland, and one other country said compulsorily nobody should be on the streets. You can imagine what kind of Christmas that people are going to have in Europe and the US. So it has redefined everything. So last Christmas was bad. 2019 was so-so. And 2021 again has become an anticlimax. So, 3-way fight for future of finance between, like we said, cryptocurrency, traditional. So we've touched on this. These are global trends, which will also affect Nigeria. US and China are fighting all over the place and competing. They're not fighting, they're fighting virtually over the Winter Games. They're fighting virtually over market share. They're fighting virtually over cryptocurrency. They're fighting one of the biggest battles is the battle of 5G and the control of streaming. The battle between Alibaba and Amazon, the battle between Huawei and what do you call this company, Qualcomm. So it's there. Chinese Americans have dominated the whole of American schools. So elections in 2022 and a possible shift to autocracy. You already see it in Africa. Out of the 51 nations, 10 have elections in 2022, and 4 are under military rule already. I heard this morning that Tigray is, we're going to have peace in Ethiopia and Tigray, we don't know. Electric vehicles have now become, I will not be surprised, and I probably believe that there are probably 1 or 2 electric vehicles in Victoria Island already, but we'll see. I can assure you that in the Style magazine of this day, 1 or 2 of these Nollywood guys, or not Nollywood, the musicians are going to say that they bought electric vehicles. I won't be surprised if Davido or Wizkid buy electric vehicle for their assurance girls. Now, new antibody and antiviral vaccines and treatments were introduced. So we know that this morning they said that they found out in South Africa that the Omicron actually was a mutation because they originated from people who had HIV before. So there's a big link. So the professors were on BBC television this morning talking about that basically those who had some conditions were the ones that the Omicron mutated faster in their bodies, right? And so there's a big debate, and the University of Cape Coast and with whatever and having that discussion this morning. Very, very interesting research link between where HIV is more prevalent is where this thing multiplies more. Okay. Implication, again, global supply. I talked about implication all along, and so I'm not going to waste time on that. So, for as far as Nigeria is concerned, and I'll just take a minute to look at this. Nigeria has launched its own digital currency, but only 188 million, 0.00001% of money supplied. No, nobody has offered me or paid me an e-currency since I started. Neither have I offered anybody. Maybe there are people who are using it to buy things. I don't know. But I doubt, I didn't see anybody in the supermarket offering to pay with e-naira. So that's the beauty of fanfare and sound bites. Now, another thing is that the informal sector. I was watching a program yesterday on channels, and they were celebrating some things. Not one of them, not one person in that big event, super spreader event, not one of them had a mask on. So anyway, what does it tell? It tells you that there's a very informal sector in this country, and that people, farmers and other people on the streets, because they're outside rather than inside, they don't really need to. And if this thing was so debilitating, we would have known thousands of people who had died. We're not hearing about other people who have died. Therefore, even if they're falling sick, they are getting better, and their resistance has become much stronger because they get it and they don't know that, and then they continue going. And I suspect that all of us have got it 2, 3, 4 times without knowing, and therefore the resistance is there, just like malaria. So, what do we have? US and China, they are trading partners. China is reviewing downwards its growth. The last time Chinese growth average was about 7%, 8%, 6%. 6% growth was considered to be low. I'm hearing now that they're projecting 1%. I can't imagine what that would mean. Electric vehicles, even the most conservative of all, Mercedes, the most conservative of all, Land Rover, and one other one have announced that they are now embracing and they are bringing back the electric vehicles to 2022. Therefore, there we are. Uber is using electric vehicles. In fact, I think it was Uber that said they are bringing electric vehicles into Nigeria. I read about that yesterday. So that would be interesting. So, in any case, nobody will steal the electric vehicle because they can't use it. So maybe that's the safest thing to drive in. So, political uncertainties, yeah, we are in that season. So, how will the world grow? In 2022, if the world grew by 5.6 in 2021, the world is going to grow by 4.3 according to the World Bank. But look at it, everybody, the EIU, the OECD, OPEC, and IMF, all of them are projecting that 2022 will be a slower year. However, in Nigeria, we are projecting, and EIU is projecting that Nigerian growth will be higher in 2022 than 2021. And even in 2023, better. But then in 2024, Nigerian growth will decline. What do we see will happen? Nigeria will go to the Eurobond market, maybe. Job market review, and there'll be capital raising. So in 2022, things to worry about what is that the budget will be passed. I think the National Assembly goes on vacation today, 21st, recess. The bill for electoral has not been passed. So even if you pass a budget and the Electoral Act has not been passed, how do you know how much you're going to spend on an election in 2023? So that budget is useless from the beginning. So because the infrastructure for electoral transmission, electronic devices all over the 774 local governments, thousands of polling units, somebody has to buy them. Somebody has to put up the infrastructure. Somebody has to, it's very expensive. It's like buying an iPad for over 10 million iPads. That is not money that you can just write off as a negligible. I want you to imagine an iPad is about almost $200. or something like that. About $100 or how much is an iPhone? iPhone is $1,000. So an iPad is cheaper. All right. Okay. All right. So yeah. So I want you to imagine the cost of that in naira multiplied by millions, and that's what they're going to use in all the polling stations to transmit results. Now, inflation reports are coming out January and February. So in the first and March, so there will be 3 inflation reports in the first quarter. The GDP numbers were released sometime in February for Q4, right, and then full year of 2021. They will also release a report that will show the GDP. You know, what they use is the output approach. They will then come up with what they call the expenditure approach, which they will use to validate that. The APC convention is February 9. That's critical. I want you to bear in mind. 1, the convention is going to be governed by the Electoral Act. If the Electoral Act has not been passed, which determines whether you're going to have direct or indirect primaries. Direct primaries means that everybody will go everywhere in the country. Indirect primaries means that there will be delegates. The delegates will assemble at Eagle Square, and everybody will vote, and all of them go away happily with brown envelopes, and a candidate will emerge. If you have it direct, there will be hundreds of thousands of people in different parts of the country transmitting results, and then, of course, the confusion. So, I suspect that you end up with indirect primaries. But then the question that so if you have that, then you have a convention. The convention will nominate officers of the party. The officers will now conduct the primaries, right, that will determine who the candidates are, right? So by February, which is 360 days to election, the biggest party will have its first convention. That convention will lead to holding primaries. The primaries will lead to the candidates. The candidates will now lead to whoever is going to take over or whoever is going to be the candidate. There are 2 elections in June. One is a constituency election, by election, and the other one is the election in Ekiti, both same states. I heard them talking yesterday on television about how it's going to be cost. So, fuel subsidy, maybe seeing is believing, February, also February. So convention, February, subsidy removal, maybe February. There'll be 3 OPEC meetings, and then the Federal Open Market Committee meeting will hold in March and increase interest rates in the US. Very important. So what do we see? We see positive growth, we see increased productivity, we see improved use of technology. So we see best case scenario in 2022, we'll have average growth rate of God knows about 3.3%, but it could be good. It could be about go as high as 5.26%. Who knows? Base case, we end up with about 3.3 or maybe lower. Who knows? If there are misunderstandings in the political space. Okay. Then we have what's going. What are the sectors that are going to drive growth? Telecommunications. You have a chance to buy Airtel. You have a chance to buy MTN. Main one is not public yet, but main one has been bought over by Equinix. But what you must know is about Nigerian fintechs raised about $1.8 billion in valuation from what they call SPACs. You know, they have private equity and they have SPACs. So we have PSB banks. So when you see advertisements, it's about Momo, Starcash, Glow, and all sorts of things. All of these are part of. So I'll spend 1 minute to explain to you what these PSBs mean. PSBs they have 3 levels of customers: tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Tier 1 means that I have my mobile wallet, and Damilola has a mobile wallet, and I want to give her 5,000. Okay, 5,000 is the price of 1 vote. So 10,000. I want to give her 10,000. I'm not trying to buy a vote. So I pay 10,000 naira into a mobile wallet, and she goes to an agent next door if she wants cash, or she can use that to pay somebody and get goods. She's She wants to buy medicine and medicine plus the opposite house, and she goes there and uses her mobile wallet and pays and goes away. In all of these things, what would have happened before is that I would go to my mobile bank system, pay to her account. She will use that and go and pay with POS. POS, part of it goes to InterSwitch, part of it goes to the bank, and part of it goes if you want to use USSD. Now, by using my MTN to her MTN, and I pay the 10,000 to her account, and she uses the MTN to pay into the MTN account of Medicine Plus opposite her house. What has happened is that that money has remained in MTN's account while we have transacted things. So the COT that FCMB or GT would have got from that, the InterSwitch money which they would have got and all that is now all cut off, right? Now, not only that, the money left in my current account, which was interest-free, and the money left in Damilola's current account and Nosike's current account, which was interest-free, which they were buying treasury bills with, is no longer, it is all in the account of MTN. Now, MTN was not going to leave their money in GT Bank for free. So all those free monies now become MTN's monies in your bank, and you pay interest to MTN. That is why MTN shares, which opened at 169, is now 187. People know. And that's why Momo and all this. So one, investment funds are going to be pooled in big pockets. Two, and that is just tier one. Tier two means that if MTN, if I want to buy insurance, I want to buy something, I want to make some sophisticated transaction, MTN will ask me for my KYC. That's tier two. And then tier three. What does this mean? It means that you have M1, which is cash, M2, which is cash plus deposits, M3, which is cash plus deposit for credit. Then you have M4, which is pseudo money, which now will increase velocity of circulation and reduce the deposit liabilities inside the banks and coagulate everything in the hands of the telcos. Right? So, welcome to competition. Transport and construction, you're going to see a lot of things there. Manufacturing, trade, agriculture. Trade, 16% of all activity in Nigeria is trade, wholesale and retail trade, across the border and within the border, but are now affected by this banditry. And agriculture, a big area for growth, because people must eat. They say in Warri, they say man must work. Okay. Now, this is the inflation trajectory we are seeing. Official headline inflation go down. It could go down to as much as go from 15.7 all the way to about 14% at the end of the year. But that's not so bad. But again, everything depends on what interest rates, because your portfolios are interest rate sensitive. And that's very, very important to know what it is. This is what we see. 2022 oil price, optimistic scenario, this is what we are seeing. External reserves, no matter what, the currency is under pressure already. Naira is under pressure, and therefore, the reserves must bleed. And this is what we are seeing. So, this is just the picture today and likely outcome in 2022. If exchange rate 559, and the market is 575, 580. So, optimistic scenario, price of oil goes to $120 a barrel, JP Morgan, production 1.8. This is the best that can happen to Nigeria. Terms of trade 60, balance of trade $14 billion positive, external reserves. We used most of it to support our Naira. And what will happen, the Naira will come from 575 down to 490. So everybody's happy. Mr. Ade Buraimo is happy. He can invest money rather than keeping it under his pillow. Now, negative scenario, oil price drops to $60 a barrel. Standard Chartered said that it could even go lower. Production drops, terms of trade drop, balance of trade drops, external reserves go to $25 billion. The Naira, in spite of all of it, the Naira will go to about 610 or 620. So here are the external boundaries of and internal boundaries of Naira, as we pointed out. Policy outlook, we've already told you what it looked like. Budget will be passed. I think it will pass. The electoral act will be done. Nigerians like brinkmanship. They wait to the last minute. And always the last minute. So they are like magicians. Sorry. Now, here we go. Public debt, big issue. CBN's secularization of CRR. Monetary policy. Problem with monetary policy is that The central bank should have tightened. That's the time. Will they tighten in January? Yes or no? If you do not tighten in January, then any move you make after that will be considered to be politically motivated. So actually between a rock and a hard place right now. Crawling peg, but this crawling peg has become a static peg. So we'll see. It begins to crawl. Sectors, interesting sectors for you. Banking, cannibalized by telecoms, but there's still some. However, restructuring of oil and gas portfolio. Don't forget, do not forget, very important. Remember this vividly, that in February, for 3 years running now, the central bank has given forbearance for restructured loans because of COVID. Can they continue to do that? If they don't, then impairments will rise among the banks, and the banking stocks are going to come under pressure, big time. Telcos, you can't go wrong with this. So whatever price, MTN, Airtel, and even telco infrastructure. I think IHS is being listed in South Africa and listed in New York. So those ones who provide infrastructure because of 5G. If it was bad, and I want you to imagine this, if it was not juicy, why would MTN pay $275 million to bid, non-refundable bid for a 5G license? I want you to imagine $275 million. Convert it. You know the budget of Lagos State, right? It's not up to $275 million. Right? It is. And that's just, you're just bidding. You have no guarantee that you'll get anything. So, and after that, you will invest another $1 billion or so this year behind the 5G. So I want you to imagine this Zoom call. Oh, please go out, exit the meeting, come out. All those things it's been so seamless. Watching movies, everything, telemedicine, you'll be able to perform surgery anywhere in the bush if you have 5G. But the 5G is not going to be in the bush, I can tell you. The 5G is going to be in the cities, urban centers, because there will be no demand for it in Big Worry or something like that. Now, so now, industrial, manufacturing, oil and gas, fuel subsidy is a big issue. That's a game changer. I heard the minister saying, sorry, we have the regulated cooking gas. There's nothing. The president is very concerned about the price of cooking gas, but there's nothing we can do because we've deregulated it. So all we can do now is pray that the price of gas comes down. And I read this morning, the price of gas again in Europe has gone up again, surged another 12% between yesterday and today. So there was something that was interesting on 2 days ago, and yesterday actually, on channels. There was the official data from NBS that said that the price of cooking gas has gone up by 39%. Then they went to some woman in Abuja, and she showed her cooking gas cylinder. Then she had thrown it away and brought her charcoal and thing and was cooking. And that this is all she can afford. So the big difference, quite frankly, the 12.5 kg is now 10,500. It was 3,000 last year. So where did the 30%? Yeah. So where did the 15% inflation come from? So here, the stocks we like: MTN, Dangote Cement, Lafarge, Custodian, and Allied, Unilever. So spread your risk, and these are the risks that you have to worry about: energy prices, property crash in China, new COVID variant. Of course, COVID. Somebody came out just today to say a COVID-free world can never happen anymore. So let's just accept that. Just like we have flu and malaria is there, and yellow fever, you just take care of it. The chance of you getting yellow fever is minimal. So you're not going to go around wearing a mosquito net in your car. That's where we are. Everybody wearing masks and all of that. Look, I've come to accept my fate, right? So, as we close out, summary: economic recovery, global economic recovery is 6%. Inflation will remain high. Higher interest rates in America, in Europe, in Africa. Nigeria going against the trend, but after elections or before elections, Nigeria will smell the coffee. They will know where things are. It's 10 months to election, so get yourself, it's going to be politics, politics, politics. Political expediency will begin to take precedence over economic reform. Interest rates, fixed income instruments will rise. CBN will come more normalization of money policy, although politics will put them under pressure. Dangote refinery, fertilizer has started, refinery and petrochemical will come up in 2023. Official headline inflation will increase before moderating. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. As always, it's always been informative and exciting session with you, sir. And as we said earlier, questions already coming in. One of the questions we have is that the clampdown on BDCs was supposed to provide some sort of narrowing between the official and the black market exchange rates. Oil prices went up. International travel has reduced, so people are not traveling as much. What exactly is fueling this continued hike in the exchange rate?
That's a very good question. And it brings you back to 001 economics. When economics says ceteris paribus, if you increase supply, the price will moderate. If you increase demand, the price will increase. If there's a shift in the aggregate demand curve, then that demand growth will be almost structural and perpetual. But the most important thing is that market structure is as important as the demand and supply. Even if we increase the supply of all the cooking gas in this world, and then it is trapped at a checkpoint at Abuja, and the supply cannot come here, what you have done is to create a structural defect. And therefore, there'll be, you know what they call scarcity in the eyes of plenty, right? You'll be seeing it, but you can't touch it. The BDC was a structural, let me put it this way. You change the structure of the market. You had the central bank having a big supply. You had the banks having the retail asking for KYC and your mother's birth certificate. And you had the BDC selling to you and looking the other way. So the market was efficient. And you had Aboki FX putting the data out to say that this is what they think is the market. By the time you took Aboki FX out, there's no price discovery. Yes, there are other sources. When you took the BDCs out, you created a bottleneck. Mind you, the BDCs were not performing any role. They were not adding value. But the only value they were adding is the fact that it was easy to access and all of that. And that convenience, and it was not a bottleneck. Now, what we've done is say the banks do not be, my malam, if I'm going anywhere at night, I can buy dollars from him. I cannot drive into a GT Bank at 12 midnight and use my ATM to get dollars. The best that your ATM will give to you is an Naira, and that is when if it's functioning, or if the dirty notes are there. So what I'm saying is that because you change the structure of the market, the outcome changed. So what do we do? Should we go and bring them back? Not, I think we could do that, but as long as they're buying at the market. In other words, don't sell to them at 410 for them to go and sell at 600. That's rent. Look for a way of moving your exchange rate towards market, have a unified exchange rate. Then the BDCs will not exist. How many of you buy money from BDCs in England? Nobody goes. BDCs, remember in those days, Thomas Cook, you carry your traveler's tape, you sign, you show your passport, and then you collect the cash. All those things are over. The world, money is now fungible. You can't. That is why your citizens and your people, even illiterates, are buying Bitcoin. So let us accept one. Money is what money can buy. Money is fungible. Money knows no borders. And if no matter how much restriction you put, they will do that. These people that are carrying cocaine every day you see on what are they looking for? They're not They don't even take the cocaine. They are going there to sell it for dollars, so they can bring the dollars to buy things here. So my take is that as we go on in the 2022, the currency will become more fungible. The currency will be getting closely convertible. The exchange rate will be reflective of the reality, and then it begins to converge. It's not going to, and you cannot regulate the market into convergence.
All right, thank you, sir. Engineer Abioyo would like to know, or is asking, do you see the backward integration program threatened in view of the insecurity situations in the country?
No. Backward integration will happen. You see, no matter what happens. Insurgency, I want you to imagine the theory about 6 months ago. No, the theory 2 years ago was that if you close the borders, people will not be able to bring guns into Nigeria and insurgency will go down. They closed the borders, insurgency reduced for 2 or 4 weeks, and then it increased. When we opened the border, insurgency now increased. Therefore, it is not true that it was because the border, when we closed the border, we had solved insurgency. That is a very unthinking answer. Number two, we then said that if we close the base stations and shut down the state, the people who are kidnapping people will not have a way to communicate to ask for their ransom. 2 or 3 weeks after, oh, it happened and we were clapping. 4 weeks later, the people arrived with other ways, I mean, using satellite phones or using all sorts of things, using agents to go and collect money. The kidnapping increased, and now the states that closed down, when they saw that business was dropping, the banks could not, they couldn't do that. They are now begging to please open up, please. So this misdiagnosis, which is part of our policy making, is an ailment of policymakers because you know why? They are lazy. They don't think through things. They just knee-jerk reaction and say, okay, this is banned or that is that. Then later on they begin to think after making the action. Now, what is happening is that insurgency will not be a threat. The big threat for backward integration is bad policy. No matter what happens, whether you like, for the sake of argument, there are 118,000 trucks that bring food into Lagos every day. Lagos has about almost 17 to 18 million people. If those trucks don't come into Lagos for 1 week or 2 weeks, there will be people with kwashiorkor in this town. There will be nothing. If you want to test it, go and close Aja, close Berger, just shut down those 2 places and see what will happen. Within a week, the price of any foodstuff in this town will quadruple. I can. If anybody wants to try that experiment, try it. No, I mean, no, it's not going to happen. But I'm just telling you.
All right, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Chinedum UK asks, with the election in view, how likely is the fuel subsidy removal to happen in 2022?
That's a question that anybody who tells you he has an answer to that question, tell him that he's going to be able to tell you the likely day of your death, the likely day of your death, right? So the truth is this, that it's a very difficult question. You know, when they say you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, that is what it is. There's no day that passes that the continued subsidy on PMS is not wreaking havoc. I'm not going to attribute everything to it, but I can tell you the question of if the price of oil went up by 63%, if GDP was officially positive, how come everybody in Nigeria is grumbling? You know this book that even the rich cry, right? Talk to Aliko, he's complaining. If Aliko is complaining, then tell me how whether Fisaya should not be complaining at the same time, even though their wealth is almost the same, but you know. possible.
All right. Thank you, sir. We're almost out of time, so maybe we'll just take one last question. And Adeyemi asks, what should retail investors be doing as we move into 2022? I don't know if you want to take that or Ade wants to take that.
Ade, retail investors, let Ade, because that's your forte. I would like to invest money as long as it doesn't keep it under his mattress.
Yeah, I think you can take that, sir. Just take it as our Christmas bonus, sir.
Okay. Now, retail investors follow the money. Retail investors buy into a collective investor scheme like Alpha Morgan. They have the specialization, they have the skill, they have the information, they have the research. So they will tell you that rather than you going to buy 178 naira for 185 naira for one stock of MTN and another one Airtel about 750, and then Nestle 1,000. Look, just buy into a fund. Buy into a fund, and that fund will give you returns that will, I can assure you, that will outperform inflation, will almost, if not do better than the currency depreciation, but definitely by this time next year, if you invested in any of these funds, you'll be smiling better than you are smiling today. But like Fela said, there's suffering and smiling. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And we